I'm trying to make people laugh, but I'm also trying to make them think. I'm also trying to make them feel. You see someone get up there and they just go like, you know, I farted out my ass the other day, and everyone was like, yeah. And then you're like, why am I even trying? You know?
Well, I think that also goes back to, like we were saying, like with comedy, it's so important, like what the crowd is like, right? Because like you have to do it in front of people. You can't do it by yourself. So it goes through the perception of the crowd, right? And I feel like some people might know what you're saying if you do these deeper things, but the deeper you get, less and less people are going to know exactly what you're talking about, so you're going to lose people on the way. Versus a simpler thing, more people are going to understand what it is and be like, oh, I know why that's funny.
Yeah. Which is, you know, honestly why I'm like heavily studying Nirvana, right? Like probably for the last 2 years studying Nirvana, because I'm like, how did he do it? How did he dumb it down enough? And I think honestly that's not on wood. It's probably why he killed himself. He was just like, they're too stupid to get it. And there's an ego in that though, where you're just like, you know, there's this wall separating you from them, and you go like, I know some people get it, but it's like they all can't get it. Yeah. And it just like, it makes you angry. It makes you resentful. Yeah. Where you go, they're not getting it. Yeah.
And just like seeing him from like the beginning towards the end, in my opinion, he was really over it. And yeah, he did kind of, if I were to say he felt that way, yes, he did. Because he was like, he always seemed like he was kind of over it, especially towards the end.
Yeah.
Like, and you can kind of see it in the Unplugged set too, where he's just like, aren't we supposed to be some big rich rock band?
Yeah.
He's like, where's my, I forgot what he didn't have, I don't know, a stool or something like that. And he was like, aren't we supposed to be huge? And like his whole vibe was like that. So I could say definitely he's one of those artists that felt like, yeah, it was just like too, I think he overanalyzed a lot too much in terms of like melody making and things like that. And I feel like he could kind of let things go a little bit. Sometimes, rest in peace, Kurt. Sometimes I refer to him as like a wet blanket in a way.
And I feel closer to a wet blanket a lot. A lot of times I go like, you know, why am I even doing this Dadaist shit? Like, what is this? Like, I should just be doing, you know, the other day, I had diarrhea or something. Like, you know, his job is to make people laugh, not to do these other things. I remember when I went to the Met, they had that Michelangelo exhibit. This was like a couple years ago. And then it said everything that is contained in life, or that could be shown in life, is contained in a block of marble. And it's just up to the artist to etch it out. And I write stuff like that down, and I go like, oh. I mean, that's why I go to the museum, because somebody's going to say something that's like, oh yeah, that's true. I mean, this motherfucker was working with rocks. And people were still going to go see those. I mean, it's just a big rock. Yeah. It was a big rock, and he was like, nah, there's a dude in there. You know, his name is David. He's got a big-ass right hand, and he's got a slingshot in the other hand. And somebody's looking at it like, that's just a rock. Shut up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing that's so interesting about art. I feel like artists, like, throughout history, probably you have to have kind of the same, like, a similar mindset to want to be doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm trying to think of an example. It's like, you don't have to necessarily be at the same time in the same place to understand why something is so good and why something is so powerful as far as art is concerned. Mm-hmm. Like, I was thinking about this. So we talked about this when we did a Pink Floyd podcast. I put Dark Side of the Moon up there with like the greatest pieces of art that's ever been created.
I would do that too, yeah.
And I think about it sometimes, and I'm like, I think next year it's about to be 50 years old.
Still on the charts.
Yeah, and that means, by the time we're older, everybody that's going to be involved with that album will have passed away. But we'll still all be listening to that, and we'll still understand what it means. So I feel like when you go to see something like that, the idea and the concept is still the same thing. It's just, hundreds of years later, and we're experiencing things differently because we have all this technology. We might think of something. We might be less, connected, like we were saying before. But that idea of, like, the art exists, we have to make it come to life. Like, I feel like that's constant throughout history of human beings.
But the cynicist or whatever, the Kurt Cobain in me would say, we're living in a very non-creative world right now. We're living in a world of copycats. Like the TikTok, the biggest app is just people copying each other. And what happens when you produce a generation of people that are incapable of making new things or surprises?
Well,
what I mean?
Some could say that that would actually make it easier for someone that is doing something new to be noticed.
No.
Because if everybody's copying everything and then somebody comes out with something that's completely different, be like, whoa, where did this come from?
But we just, at the beginning of this podcast, we're talking about how people want to hypnotize themselves into liking what everyone else likes.
True.
And for you to see something new, that means it would take time for you to actually be adjusted to it. And a lot of people are more comfortable with being like, no, I know what it is, and I know what they like, and they like, and they like, you know. And, you know, it's like, we live in New York City, but look at the uniform in New York City, man. You go to Williamsburg, look at how many people's feet, and they wear Stan Smith Adidas. And it's like, you don't even know who Stan Smith is, but you wear that shoe because you see him wearing that shoe. And you like this video because somebody else likes this video, or you like this song because someone else likes this song.
Well, let's bring Kurt back into it. Because some would say that the reason that Nirvana became so successful is because of how different it was than what was happening at the time with the hair metal shit.
Yes.
So when people heard Nirvana, and you know, Kurt obviously wasn't like, I'm going to be the biggest rock star in the world.
Right.
But when he Nevermind specifically is what broke them, obviously.
Yeah.
So when people heard that, they're like, whoa, this is completely different. I love this. And then that became the thing that everybody was trying to copy, and everybody was trying to hypnotize themselves into liking, if not they actually liked. You know what I'm saying?
So here's what I would say.
Yeah.
And
I like this. This is good.
So imagine if Kurt had gotten famous in Bleach.
Mm-hmm.
We never would have got Nirvana. Like, we never would have got Nevermind.
Right.
Because now we're at the point where it's like, if you're young enough and you're cool enough, you got the look, they'll push you. Mm-hmm. And then whatever that song is that you do, or whatever it is, that's what they want. This is what you're going to have to put out and keep making. So it's like, and then not even just that, like with social media, it's almost like, you know, impossible to, I don't want to say, like, there was a period of struggle where they were like, he did a Bleach and then he came to Nevermind, and he was like, there was a period of frustration where he's like, this isn't right, it's not good enough, it's not simple enough, you know, I need to find the right influences or whatever, you know, like he liked like with the Pixies and I forget the other people he took some other songs from.
Yes, Vaseline's too. So.
There's something like The Young or something. One of those songs, like Come As You Are was supposed to be like the single, but he didn't want to because he's like, I stole this whole melody from this other band. And they knew it, and then they just let it go. But now we live in an age of like, you know, if they had done this certain song, that one song would have blew up. And then like, I think, like if I'm thinking of Bleach, About a Girl, that song's a great song. Mm-hmm. That one song could have gone viral, and that would have changed his whole entire life. We would have never had. It's like the time it takes to become a great artist, you can't cheat. It doesn't matter if it's social media, like how big you are, you just can't cheat it. But the bigger you become, the less of that time you need to be hidden and be refined. You should not be having people come up to you your first 2 years or whatever, being like, you're amazing, I love your one joke. And you're like, well, I can't get good anymore at this because the show is here. Like, I'm the show now.
Yeah. And it's so funny that we're talking about him because that's exactly how he played it out. You know, I feel like when he started, the environment was more conducive to starting something new, being very different, breaking through like the mold and stuff like that. And that was more encouraged like in the 90s and stuff. Now it's like, well, you got to make a hit. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you have to do something exactly what somebody else did. And they did get so big that by the time they came out with In Utero, he wanted to just throw everything away. He's like screaming on the microphone. Everything's badly produced.
I love In Utero.
You know what I mean? And I love that album. And we did as kids too, because it was like, it was so different. Because he was right. All the jocks were listening to him. They used to beat him up in school, and now they love him. They love his style of music, and he basically was that person back then. Then they hated him, and now they packaged him into something for everybody to like.
He's a style.
Yeah, because the record industry kind of did that to him too. Yeah. Like Nevermind is not really. I wouldn't really say it's who Nirvana is at their core.
I wouldn't either.
You know what I mean? It's who they got packaged as and pushed as. And then after he was sick of it and was like, I want to kind of revert back to myself. And it was almost like the backlash from him reverting to who he exactly was with songs like Rape Me and stuff like that did make him want to just delete.
Milk It.
You know? Yeah.
Milk It's probably... Milk It and... I think it's radio shifter unit, something like that. It's like radio friendly shifter unit, but Milk It, those are the ones where like I go back and I really read the lyrics, like because I didn't start reading the lyrics till like 2 years ago, but when I heard the words, I thought they said very different things, like I am my own parasite. My milk is my shit is my milk. Her, and it's like talking about like we can share our endorphins, and I just remember thinking like the words to the song are like doll steak, and then test meat. But what I heard was like a don't stay, or like, and then waste me. Like, I thought that's what he was saying. And so many of his songs that he does that on, and I think like the first one in Nevermind is the big example of the hello, hollow, hollow. And then at the end when he's like a denial, but really when he sings it, it sounds like I can die now. Like, this is just me hearing it, not even like doing any analysis. And then I had to go back and go, he says denial? I was like, oh shit, really? And I became obsessed with that. I was like, how do I do that in comedy? Where they hear something, but that's not really what I'm saying.
Wow.
And then he has the other song, I think it is Radio Friendly Shifter Unit. I can't remember exactly, but it's like talking about, he goes like, what is wrong with me? But when he sings it, it sounds like, it sounds to me like he's saying, I'm at war with me.
Interesting.
And then he goes like, you know, what do I think? I thought he was saying, what do I think of things? But he's really saying, what do I think? I think.
I love that song.
I do too. That song for me is like the one, like, it's perfect, where it's like, yeah, I'm this guy that is at war with himself. And he talks about like, you know, the afterbirth of a nation. And it's just like, when I hear that, I go like, how do you do this? But how do I do this in comedy?
Wow, Alex, I really think you can do it. You're like a whisperer. How do you hear these things? Like when we were coming in.
Mental illness.
One of those. Man, oh man, shout out to mental illness.